So, hey everyone. If you're watching at home, this is Misery Loves Company social reading series. It's Friday, August 21st, and we have several talented kind of outsider and transgressive writers signed up to read tonight. I'm not going to belabor this. I'll just turn it over to the first reader here. Hestia, I think you're up first.
Hey, all right.
Hey,
Okay.
and you have a couple of poems for us, right?
Yeah. Do you want me to link them in the chat?
Oh, I've got the links. I can drop the
All right.
links in the chat. I'm going to put them up on Twitter as well.
Okay. So the first one I'm gonna read is titled "Finishing the Kill." The swing of hammers, clash of raw iron with tools that guide it towards perfection. Hissing screams from the iron as it's drowned in water. Form hardens, now molded into perfection. A sword to cut clean through nearly anything. Swords for the righteous and faithful. Forged in preparation to be used in the hunting and slaughtering of Satan. A Satan which stalks the world, arms outstretched, clinging on to what it can as it blasphemes God's own creation. We shall plunge our blades deep into the demonic imperialist core, its moldy black ichor swelling outwards, used as fuel for our purifying flame, our jihad, our liberation, our success. No more shall Satan haunt our earth in the form of America. And then the second one is titled "I Wasn't Meant to Die Here." Boots caked in mud, blood, human waste, and the ashes of corpses burned. We hold our line against what must be the 9 legions of hell itself. These, I don't even want to call them men. Their howls and screams echo forth as they charge straight into the metallic teeth of our firing line. Ripped to shreds in our 1 kilometer-long maw, they never cease to come. Their corpses are a wall now. We've been sleepless for what feels like months. Time feels frozen as spring hasn't come when it should already be summer. Maybe this is hell we are all trapped within. The artillery is never silent, yet ammunition remains somehow. All I know is my grave is somewhere in this mud. And that's it.
Great. Hey, if you have one or two more that you'd like to read, we don't have that many people booked for tonight, so feel free.
All right, I'll read. Give me just a second. I'll link
Sure,
it.
absolutely.
Um, this one as well, and then if there's still time, I guess I can figure out one more to read. Um, this one is titled "Oh You Pale Little Light You." Blazing down neon lit asphalt streets, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 red lights blasted through. High on 5 grams of Colombian cocaine, music screaming out my speakers. All that's audible is the wind in my ears, the hum of my motor, the screech of my tires. Dressed in a blazer, off-white pants, black Converse shoes. I rip my way across the earth towards my destination. Hair flying free, one massive orgy of the senses. Truck slams into me at 80 miles per hour, breaking all illusions. Hammer hitting glass, shattering my world. Catapulted out of my seat, I fly at what must be 60 feet. Then nothing as my head cracks open upon the asphalt. I awake in a hospital bed hooked up to an endless number of cords and wires. A curtain hangs just below my nipples, so I can't see any lower like a horse in blinders. Life connected only to one plug, easily pulled like some useless electronic doll. Fading candle, flickering light, the nurse arrives startled that I'm awake. She asks if I feel anything, but I can't speak. She nods and tells me that the operation was a success, but now I'll be paralyzed from the neck down. After I'm discharged, I got a $500,000 hole to fill. The court fines me another $100,000 for the crash. In my wheelchair, I slowly make my way to a bridge. I ride this chariot of shame off it. In those final moments before I crash into the river Styx to be swept away as just another lost soul, I wander into that night of sheer joy. I wonder if that night of sheer joy was worth dying for.
Wow.
That one was really good. I like the end of it, especially the Crash into the river Styx. That's an awesome line.
Yeah.
Thank you. Do we want to move on, or do you want me to read one more?
If
I'm
you
fine
have
with
one
that.
more to read, knock yourself out, because I just got a message from Anne and she's having some computer difficulties. So
Okay. I guess I'll read this one. Titled Formless and Beautiful in the Digital. Face glued to my screen as pixels flux and flow, opening tabs, closing tabs, digital nomadism from the comfort of my chair, the bloops and bleeps and serotonin pulsing through my brain, happy, happy, happy. Other bleeps and bloops cause me to spiral out, sad, sad, sad. My life in the screen and the cords and cables, data mining my personality within a complex network of people who don't exist. The digital world, Schrodinger's universe. My body may as well be a corpse, for my mind runs free in this playground. Endless landscapes of the binary, vast mind planes fed through digital algorithmic logic loops. Life on repeat, far better than the false world of physical. I take whatever form I wish, be whoever I wish, love and interact with whoever I wish. Trapped in meat, no longer free in the cyber, long live the new flesh.
yeah. Just fantastic stuff as usual. You know how much I love your poetry. Like, I'm just blown away every time by, I don't know, just like the vividness of it, like the the like knee jerk like visceral impact of all the imagery, you know?
Thank you. That
Pleasure.
is, um, I, Arthur Rimbaud is one of my literary inspirations, and so I definitely kind of try to do that sort of vivid imagery and putting you almost in a place, right? Like using those first person pronouns and stuff in order to make it to where you could self insert with this nameless protagonist.
Yeah, it's all very immediate. You know, I don't know if that's the right word really, but it feels like there's no separation between like the reader, the poet, and the construct of the poetry, right? It it's like a perfect through line in a way that I really appreciate that. Yeah.
It's like they're supercharged almost, and you're getting electrocuted when you're hearing it or reading it. It's just, it goes straight into you. It's super cool.
Uh, thank you for the compliments. As always, the feedback is heavily appreciated, and you are all wonderful people.
I really liked the first one. It made me think. I never really thought of it this way before, but if someone is willing to create from scratch their own weapon to kill or attack, it's almost it's almost justified in a way because you've created something and you're willing to use your creation, even if it's to extinguish another. It's somehow justified. It made me think that way. That was kind of cool. I've never thought of it that way before, but I really like that first one.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, Adam, would you like to go next? I see Anne is here, but I want to give her some time to kind of get things configured and stuff before she
Sure.
goes, since I know she was having some computer issues. Oh, and she just dropped. So I think she's still having some computer issues.
Yep,
Yeah, so
I
take it
will.
away.
I will go. This is called Little Burgundy Pox. It's a little bit longer than the other ones I've read, so bear with me. There should be less spelling errors in this one. The lunch rush persisted despite the curtains of rain. It was muggy, so some people opted to not even wear any rain clothes as they ran from their cars to the counter inside to order their meals, squeaking shoes and dripping from their noses and brows, drenched but somehow still hot. From our table, I could see the looks of despair on the faces of those who wore rain slickers, the suffocating plastic stuck to their clammy arms and necks. Few fussed with umbrellas that buckled in gusts of hot wind or had to be closed before getting through the door. Don't get too close to Sarah today. She's been real pinchy. Woke up on the wrong side of the bed, said my aunt. My cousin Sarah side-eyed my aunt and held up two greasy fingers like a claw. I'll pinch you, said Sarah. You won't ever pinch me, said my aunt. I hate you, said Sarah. Well, that's a shame because I love you, said my aunt. I watched my cousin pick out the marbly pills of gristle from her beef patty and pinch them off into the paper cup on her tray. Her tiny eyes were honed like a surgeon's, and despite the pudginess of her digits, her operation seemed to be relatively successful. If her hamburger were a patient, it would have expected scarring and a prolonged sensitivity to the site of extraction. My aunt scanned the dining room and said, "Did you hear about St. Patrick's? They're turning people away. It's full. I saw it on the news." Really? Yeah, I believe it, I said. There's plenty of churches down here, lots of room. My aunt nodded slowly. Her colorless, cloudy eyes went wider with each nod. Her thoughts did something to her face. Whatever was in her mind somehow obliterated the wrinkles and sagging and left behind some kind of ageless, nauseous wonder. I heard her scratch the psoriasis on her stump under the table. I ate a French fry and looked out the window to see if it was still raining, and it was. My aunt seemed to reach the terminus of whatever future she was imagining because her slow nodding stopped. She looked at Sarah and said, "Are you going to eat any of that or just play with it?" "MYOB," said Sarah. "Looky here." My aunt tilted her tray of garbage at Sarah. "I'm a clean plater." Sarah is the 5th Down syndrome child my aunt has adopted. My aunt started adopting them after she miscarried and my uncle left her. Her other adopted children all died prematurely at young ages due to the usual diseases that kill people with Down syndrome. But Sarah had defied the odds and was turning 40. A lanky teen boy with long feet came over in a paper hat. "Can I clear any of these trays for you ladies?" he said. Without a word, my aunt stacked her tray on top of Sarah's, smashing the meaty mess of beef. She stacked a cup of gristle pieces on top of that. The boy took the trays away. My cousin did not give my aunt the pleasure of showing any anger. Sarah turned to watch the boy. "I'd eat the corn out of this shit," she said. My aunt dug hurriedly through her purse and produced a wooden ruler. She slapped it down onto Sarah's hand. Sarah drew her hand back, but was laughing, head thrown back. "I had to scrub your mouth out with soap, you dirty lady. Nasty," said my aunt. The rain slowed. I hurried to finish my meal. I ordered a cheeseburger, but the cook forgot to put a hamburger patty on my bun. "I don't know where she hears trash like that," said my aunt. I'm sure my family thought I was doing a good thing out of the kindness of my heart, accompanying them on these weekend chores. My parents avoided them like they were contagious with something. I saw my visits with them as a kind of vaccine. If I spent enough time with them, I would be immune to the discomfort of my misfortune. I would never be embarrassed or sorry for myself, no matter how I ended up. It wasn't about boosting my self-esteem, comparing myself. I wasn't there to sprinkle my pity on them. It was not entertainment. It was all about getting educated in the secret ways of the universe. I knew they both contained an inherited wisdom that I wanted to access, something in which they were enveloped by, but not consumed. "We'd better get going," said my aunt, noticing the lull in the downpour. My aunt's crutch sank into the muddy lawn as we climbed the center hill of the cemetery. Sarah and I helped pull the end of the crutch out when it got stuck. We got to the top where my aunt's leg was buried. It had its own little gravestone. It was amputated when she was a girl after a boating accident. My aunt said that since the doctor had taken away so much of her, she wanted it laid to rest properly. She said she might need it in heaven or space or wherever she thought she was going. It had its own service. There was only one prosthetic applied to my aunt's stump. When she was still little, she was fit with a plastic dummy leg. But then she outgrew it and had to be fitted for a new one. I wailed like a haint, she said. I didn't want to give it up. I'd grown attached to it. It was like losing my leg all over again. After that first one, my aunt never fitted for a new dummy leg. She still has her childhood prosthetic in a closet somewhere and lets Sarah play with it on occasion. The bouquet Sarah was in charge of carrying fell apart along the way, leaving a trail down the hill and back to the car. She squeezed the remaining life out of the black-eyed Susans and baby's breath, but my aunt couldn't say anything about it. Sarah tossed the limp bouquet down onto the ground in front of the little granite marker. She reminded me of Boris Karloff playing Frankenstein's monster, rain-soaked, slack-jawed, wobbling. Thank you, baby, said my aunt. It started to rain again, a steady hot dripping. We all surrendered to the weather and ignored our saturation. Sarah wandered down the other side of the hill where the locust tree was. My aunt ignored her, but I watched. I always watched. She lost her balance and landed on her hip and elbow. She got up and glanced back at us to see if we saw. She smiled at me. She was now muddy on one side, and my aunt would have to get the towel out from the trunk. They only buried it a few feet down. I bet with all this rain, it's just bobbing in that hole, said my aunt. I thought she meant the container the leg was in must be floating underground from all the rain, the same way the coffins float to the surface in New Orleans when they get floods, but I wasn't sure. I never asked if it got its own casket or if they just wrapped it up and put it in a box, a Ziploc bag, or what. I knew they couldn't just throw the leg in the hole and cover it up with dirt. Cities concern themselves with the rate of decomposition and its eventual leaching into the water supply. I had lots of questions about the logistics of it all, but I didn't want to be rude. Or maybe I never really cared enough. I decided to ask that day because by then, each little event had to be framed in such a way that it might be the last. Questions like mine were being asked all over the world. So I asked her in a genuinely curious way and tried not to sound facetious. How will you be reunited with your leg? I asked. I could tell by her expression that she hadn't thought of that. It was a sad look. I imagine my aunt realized that her crutch had sunk several inches into the mud. She yanked it up out with a grunt. I imagine they'll just plop it down in my casket with me. Do you think there will be much of it left? I mean, won't it just be bones? She hadn't thought of that either. I started feeling sorry I'd asked anything. I don't know. They pump an awful lot of formaldehyde in anybody. I bet it's pickled pretty good, said my aunt. She went on to describe how some of the process would unfold after she died. The groundskeeper would remove the tiny gravestone and replace it with my aunt's final, larger gravestone. Everyone wants to be buried on a hill, I know. In one way, she said, I'm glad my leg had to go. It saved me a spot for the rest of me. She talked about how much she regretted not having her children buried around where she would eventually be, but that there just wasn't enough room. I worry to death about your cousin, she said. I wasn't planning on her outliving me. The remains of my aunt's children were in little urns. She forgot sometimes who was in which urn and had to lift them up and peek at the little pieces of masking tape with the rester's initials etched on to confirm who she was talking to or about. She had Sarah rotate the urns amongst the rooms of the house every so often as to give them fresh scenery. Sarah spilled her siblings, strangers to her, from time to time, but was meticulous in sweeping them back into their containers. I made the mistake of glancing down the hill at Sarah at the locust tree. I knew her habit, but tried to keep it out of my mind when we came to visit my aunt's leg. But I watched. I always watched her while she picked the barbs from the tree and poked them into her arms, drawing blood. The rain rinsed the blood away as soon as it broke the surface of her skin. I could barely see all of this through the rain from that distance, but I knew what was happening. I saw her mouth moving like she was engaged in a dialogue with herself. Her brows would furrow, then she'd raise them in surprise. Two characters in conversation, a budding actress, I thought. I asked her once what all the marks on her arms were, little burgundy pocks in various stages of healing or infection. Playing Bible was all she said. My aunt never tried to stop Sarah from playing Bible. I guess it was possible while in some kind of reflective state at the cemetery, she never noticed what Sarah was doing. I never caught my aunt glancing down at Sarah at the locust tree. I don't know how my aunt explained away the marks on Sarah's arm. She had her cataracts cut out a while ago. I thought it pertinent that there be some parental guidance when it came to Sarah's book of Bible stories she kept on her bedside table. But I also respected a person's private rituals. I sometimes wondered if maybe something more passionate was required for the problems we faced, and that Sarah was simply pioneering in that direction. Anyway, that's where my mind wandered while I looked at the marble and granite and concrete gravestones that were seeming to melt by just being rained on. The smell of worms started getting to me. I felt flush from the warm raindrops. I could feel my sweat mingling with the rain underneath my clothes. Sarah came back to us. I saw she had brought along one of the barbs from the locust tree. She saw me notice it. She turned so it was out of view. She tapped my aunt on her arm with the back of her free hand. "I'm going to miss Lancelot Link," she told my aunt. "No, you are not. Lancelot Link is on tape. You can't miss it if it's on tape," said my aunt, rolling her eyes and huffing. "And look at you. You're covered in mud, filthy lady. We're going to have to get the towel out." My aunt would invite me to stay for supper, and I would always accept, and we would watch Lancelot Link while we ate. We would look out the window and shake our heads at the persistence of the rain, and I would learn how to be more like them, enveloped but not consumed. And that's it.
Great job.
Yeah, fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Once again, it's your ability to like find these mundane details and turn them sort of in and of themselves into a story. Like the thought, if you said abstractly, like, this is a story about a woman whose leg was amputated and she had it buried, you know, as if it was the whole of her, I'd say, oh. And you'd think, oh, maybe it's a piece of flash fiction or something. Like you'd like, oh, but your ability to flesh it out in such a like human and humane way and have it feel like so complete and so like honest, it's I don't know, I'm fucking blown away every time. Really, really, sincerely, I am.
No, thank you.
Yeah, I don't know if this is really the right term to use, but your works have this odd, heartwarming quality to them. There's such a strange slice of life element in all of it, but it is so genuine and real that it gets your feelings going, even if they normally wouldn't exist for that purpose. Just incredible.
Yeah, it's almost like the I should not have tried to say a word that's such an obvious tongue twister. Antithesis. I'm never going to be able to say it. Someone help me out here. But it's almost like
Antithesis. Oh, fuck.
thank
Fuck.
you.
I'm worse
Thank
at
you,
it.
Eris. My God, I hate it when I get stuck. I just keep going. Anyway, it's almost like a kind of inversion of Southern Gothic, where like you have these expectations of like a Southern Gothic piece, that it's going to have this kind of dark quality to it, and that it's going to have be very like into the kind of not just the sad mundane details of people's life, but like the grotesquerie of people's life. And these pieces oddly have like a little bit of that like fixation on like on the grotesque, but somehow they always manage to transcend that and become these, like Brandon was saying, like really legitimately like life-affirming, heartwarming little pieces. It's fascinating to me.
Yeah, the Southern Gothic thing. I mean, it does give me those definite, like I said about your other story, Malone vibes, which is a country, country town type vibes, especially in the dialogue, really, with the aunt. Those y- your dialogue is it basically sounds like something that you could hear where I'm living. So I'm pretty amazed by that, how it sounds so like, I don't know if genuine's the word, but it sounds like something I've heard basically, and I think that's pretty cool. I was going to ask you about the formatting. Is that how did you come about doing it that way with the way the lines are structured?
The way the lines are structured. How do you mean? Like,
Like like for example, you have whatever was in her mind somehow obliterated the and then you have a line break, the wrinkles and sagging into. I was just wondering about the line breaks.
that may have been a mistake on the. That may have been a mistake. On mine, it's not broken, but maybe it is on another copy. Yeah, I struggle a lot with structure and stuff like that. So thank you. My wife just brought me pie. But yeah, so this story in particular went through a lot of drafts, and I've read it to several people and have tried to. I fixed a lot of things in it, and the part about the leg, there's an extended family member that actually did do that to their leg, and then I just kind of built off of that. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I appreciate all the kind words, and yeah, I'm always worried that there's too much saccharine feelings in some of my stories, like they're too fable-ish or too heartwarming, but I also don't want it just to be grotesque I kind of want there to be some real life in there too. So yeah, I appreciate all of that. Thank you very much.
I definitely don't think they're too saccharine, because they have the right mixture of sad qualities and I suppose happy qualities that just makes it feel real. And your stuff does one of my favorite things about fiction, which each piece seems to serve as a portal into a different time and place, which is wonderful for someone who lives a sort of sheltered and consistent life. So I just love that about the stuff.
Yeah, I just wanted to compliment real quick that I really like that. I mean, that's similar to what I wanted to say. Actually, was it was about like some things that should have been sad. I mean, I would expect to be sad, but it ended up not really being sad at all. It was actually quite nice and just a pleasant like memory in a way. Yeah, it was very enjoyable in that way.
Yeah, I don't want the characters, people to feel sorry for them because they don't feel sorry for themselves. So I try to do that too.
I just wanted to post a quick apologize for single-handedly ruining the meeting when I logged onto my phone for a second and doubled the audio or something. But
no, don't worry about it. That's the nature of these.
On a serious note, I did want to acknowledge just the amazing opening, where it was just like describing being in a restaurant and people getting rained on, and like that incessant need to go get your food served to you and like define everything for it. I work fast food at a zoo as my real life, and was just thinking today how hard it is to feel connected to like being a writer or being a thinking person or being a human being at all while I'm working that job, especially when it's shitty outside like it was today. And I felt like, yeah, it was really great to see that kind of thing, like really ringing up the gory details of Order in the Hamburger world. It's like,
Yeah, so yeah, I've worked in the food service world too, and it's very rough, very rough.
Great. So I think Anne is up next. Anne, did you get your computer issues kind of sorted out here? You with us? And just while we're waiting for Anne here, after Anne, we're going to do the open mic. So if anyone has anything they want to read, just put a note in their chat. And Rudy, you'll be keeping an eye on that, right?
Yep.
Cool, cool. Yeah, I can never track the chat and Twitter and everything at the same time. I don't know. I see Anne in the chat. Are you with us, Anne? You're up next.
You have to unmute yourself, Anne. Like I can see your.
Sorry, I just realized that I was talking and nothing was coming up because I'm too flaky to unmute myself.
Oh, no. Sorry about that. I forgot to mention that.
I'm also sorry for being can I swear? Never mind. For being
Oh yeah,
jerk.
definitely. You can absolutely fucking swear. I think I have like 13 times so far tonight, so don't worry about it.
There's a little naughty counter on your computer. It's like, oh, you know, $1 for the swear box, $1 for the swear box. But yeah, I'm usually not this big of a flaming asshole as to show up at a reading and miss the other person's reading.
You are charming as fuck.
Thank you. Yeah, that's how I got away with all those bodies that are buried in my old house's basement. But in my defense, I did kind of get brain damage when I had typhus at the beginning of last year. So my sense of time is absolutely piss poor. And
yeah, Christ. Yeah. No, but don't worry about it. Don't worry about it at all. And I know with Zoom, for a lot of readers, a lot of our previous readers have had issues kind of acclimating to Zoom. It's kind of a weird setup if you're not used to it. Now you're going to be reading from a selection from your novel, right?
Yeah, it's a totally different kind of animal from what we just read. So fortunately for me, it's going to be impossible to compare them. I guess the one common thread is it's in outer space in the far future, but I do have a couple of characters who are very frustrated with their restaurant jobs because, several dozen centuries from now, people are still going to treat waitstaff like shit.
Yeah, some things never change. Well, okay, take it away. It's all you.
All right. Cool. I actually was just going to read the beginning of the book because it's long and complicated enough that I don't know if I want to start you guys in media res, but I'm kind of tempted to read the, one of my beta readers called this the Laverne and Shirley bit, where it's just these two women doing their shitty restaurant job in outer space. But maybe I will let you, maybe that's for another time, or I will let you discover it by yourself. Because if I don't read from more or less the beginning, it's going to be confusing. So I'm going to start with, I guess I'm going to start with the first chapter as opposed to the prologue. The prologue is little girl in outer space. She's the granddaughter of the, her grandfather was a great actor and musical theater actor, which was fortunate for their family and actually for all the mortals, because when humanity escapes in a kind of Chinese prototype spaceship from when we blow each other up and, whoever can pile on the spaceship escapes. But over time, we barely make it to a planet orbiting Alpha Centauri, and the planet's kind of inhabitable. The descendants of today's you know, poor and average people wind up living on the planet, which, you know, has twice as much gravity as the Earth. It's kind of a shithole. There are animals there that will kill you in the night. But they're mining for this ore that's refined into a drug called life, which mysteriously makes the descendants of the current rich people or mega rich people immortal. But taking the same drug just has the same effect as basically even worse heroin on mortals. And prior to the main character's grandfather's great ability to sing, causing the beginning of a great migration from the new Earth to the moon, which is the nice place to live. And you know, it's small, so there are a lot of population issues they've got. They really encourage people to be gay so that they don't have kids, for example, because, you know, part of the population lives forever, and then another part of the population is basically really low paid employees / serfs, and they have sex and do this destructive drug for fun, even though it kills them, because, hey, mining for this shit will kill you young anyway, so at least they can have some fun. So maybe I should have read the prologue. Wow, I really have brain damage from the typhus, but I'm just gonna,
I follow you perfectly.
All right,
yeah,
awesome.
I understand. A quick setting question though, actually. Do you have to keep dosing with this life in order to stay immortal, or is it just like a one-time use, you're immortal, like there you go?
Oh, you have to use it every day, but the great thing is it gets you high. So for some mysterious reason, which of course our heroine will eventually stumble upon as part of her plot to get back at her theater school girlfriend who left her to marry an immortal, because if you marry an immortal, you also mysteriously become immortal. So she's spent her entire youth being pissed off because her girlfriend from college dumped her to become immortal, which most of us would probably choose that, right? Like, if you marry an immortal, you get to live forever, you get to be high all day, and you actually get a leg up in the theater industry, which is, you know, the big game in town in a society that still has fragments of our technology, but they don't really know how to use it or build anything new. So musical theater is the place to be. And for some mysterious reason, mortals are always found to be less talented than the immortals. So they're always like a singing potted plant, no matter how talented they are. But so, you know, but the immortals like having them there for the same reason people like, you know, low paid labor today, because you can pay them shit, and if they don't like it, they can go back to mine on Earth too, right? Actually, it wasn't meant as a political allegory. It's just like, this is the way people are always going to act, because that's the way people always have acted. So yeah, like the bonuses of being an immortal are many, but the mystery is, why do immortals seem to be biologically different from mortals? And the answer is, of course, because people suck, but the specifics of that, oh shoot, I gotta plug my computer back in. The specifics of that are discovered by our heroine. And this scene that I'm about to read is after the prologue, which lays all this out and kind of shows you the dynamic that Electra, our mortal heroine, has with her family. Spoiler alert, they're drunk and abusive, you know, like one would be in such a situation. So the prologue just kind of explains this and shows you her family dynamic with her grandfather. This is later, after the whole, like, you know, there's a bit of a flashback at the beginning, but this is after the whole getting dumped by her girlfriend who wants to become immortal, understandably. But, you know, our heroine is a bit of a drunk and a drug addict, so she's not always thinking the most clearly she could possibly be thinking. So this is chapter 1 after the prologue. And she's standing in the bushes wearing a ridiculous costume. So, God, you know what? Reading a novel at a reading is a much bigger pain in the ass to explain than reading a short story. I got to write more short stories, but.
Yeah, no, that's certainly true. There's so much you have to do just to set the stage, right?
Yeah, like I was like, oh, I'm going to start from the beginning. But wait, the very beginning just explains all this shit. I could explain this shit. And I really want to be reading the part where they're bitching about their restaurant job. But, you know, that's really in media res. There's even more shit to explain. This thing is like 250,000 words long. If I could afford an editor, I'd be the happiest girl in the world. But anyway, before I eat up any more of everyone else's evening, wow, it's been a long time since I've talked to people. All right. I'll just read now. Sorry. Everyone's like, oh my God. Some people shouldn't be alone with their cats for 6 months. So, chapter 1. 19 long years later, the new Earth crept up to haunt the evening sky. Blood red and horrible, like a hole punched in your skin. The shadow it cast on the surface of its moon was tinged with bile. In the stand of artificial trees that separated a garish mansion from the grandest boulevard in the city of heaven, a figure skulked in the shadow of a magnolia tree made of platinum. On the moon where the city had been founded, the natural vegetation was all low to the ground, but the primates who had landed there craved tall plants to look at, even if no one had seen a living tree in thousands of years, so they built them from whatever came to hand. This pricey, chic metal magnolia was hand-coated in green enamel with ever pink and gray flowers in the shape of folded hands. It was highly stylized since the design had been handed down through the ages, generation to generation of craftsmen who had never seen the real thing. 5 years display outdoors had left its articulated leaves slightly chipped where they rustled against one another. Although it hadn't fared as badly as the unpainted iron oaks did in the public parks, where they accumulated an artificial underbrush of used junk food bags and syringes. The intruder's hands parted 2 low branches slightly. The arms were barely long enough to help the hands emerge from a floor-length cape with swirling sleeves. The cape was the wrong size because it had been picked out of the dumpster behind a theater. The figure was tall enough to be a man, short enough to be a woman, with long, thin limbs and a slouching, awkwardly graceful profile. The intruder wanted to feel dramatic and dangerous, but she had shot up far too much life before the mission. The cape trembled like platinum leaves in a stiff breeze. The costume shook harder as the front doors of the mansion slowly parted. The doors were 3 meters tall and as thick as a government officer's shoulders, carved from solid blocks of tiger's eye stone. Oil torches, tended hourly by a servant, cast a theatrical light on a long flight of steps that led up to the massive doors. They would have given the hilltop mansion the look of a stately ancient earth castle, if only it weren't for the rest of the house. It was rich garbage of an architectural style that was briefly popular amongst the top tier of theater stars 5 years ago, i.e. 1597, in the year of our Lord, some ancient earth god's son who no one knew much about anymore. An egg-shaped hexagon of high walls was afflicted at random intervals with egg-shaped turrets and pointy baldachins. It was meant to have a jaunty feel, but the sight of it made most people feel like they were coming down with influenza instead. The roof was covered in purple stone leaf, and wow, this is way too much. This is way too much description to read aloud. The unwanted
It's
character.
fantastic.
Thank you. The roof was covered in purple stone leaf, and highly painted statues of the muses perched wherever they seemed to have gotten tired. Tin foliage sprouted from the silver planters hanging at every window, and the front of the house was draped with hard, cascading waves made of gilt aluminum tulle. The tiger's eye doors alone lent it an incongruous touch of dignitas, although they hardly matched all the silver and purple. The unwanted character felt its envy becoming tempered by contempt for the inhabitants' bad taste and chuckled. The portal's pneumatic machinery, I know I'm pronouncing that wrong, now drew them far enough apart to let the lady of the house emit one moon silk slippered little foot. The foot pulled back inside the door again briefly. The Lady Miranda was, the intruder knew, pausing to check her bag for forgotten keys and lipsticks. It was nonsense behavior now, caked on habit. Miranda didn't need keys. Her faithful servants opened all doors for her, and the chauffeur of her guinea horse carriage had known her since her marriage. She was too healthy looking to need lipstick, and she was too rich to worry if a bit of cash had fallen from her purse. But her character was richly vain with obsession. It was what had made her good enough at the art of dance to be a star. Well, marrying an immortal theater honcho didn't hurt, thought the intruder. The sight of the familiar behavior was jarring in the doorway of a mansion. It tugged at the figure's throat, attacked the nerves with old images of the girl Miranda had once been. Gracefully locking her dorm room, intently practicing ballet steps, hundreds of repetitions at a time, reapplying lipstick after they kissed one warm and youthful afternoon 100 million moments ago. Finally, in one graceful chassé, the rest of the famous dancer came out, tucking the bag under her arm. She also wore a cape, but it was an open weave dinner party number. Its pink moon silk warp was stiffened with a woof of gleaming bronze thread, and the brooch that held it at her smooth throat was carved from her signature tiger's eye stone. It kept its shape but flowed along with her leonine spine as she trickled down the front staircase. Each gilt-rimmed stair had been inlaid with mother of moon pearl and more large, perfect, round tiger's eyes. The combs in Miranda's black hair were tiger's eye as well. The stones accentuated her smooth, deep golden skin and set off the roses in her cheeks. Though she was only 3/8 immortal by birth, her marriage to a full god seemed to have agreed with her. Her taut, wholesome cheeks and the free play of her liquid joints reminded the intruder of a soap advertisement from a long ago century. Smaller tiger's eyes coated the bodice of Miranda's side-slit gown like an all-seeing tawny coat of armor. Though her favorite stone was only semi-precious, Miranda had remained faithful to it through the years. The stones weren't the only thing she had remained faithful to in her offhanded way. It was a strange way, but the intruder who had crept out to meet her appreciated it none the less. Miranda de Beaulieu had not married for love. She had married to become immortal, but she had kept a lover clinging in the shadows. The air of the Olympic district was perfumed with synthetic gardenia. Earth, too, was now rising high in the evening sky. Its diseased-looking surface, the red rock pockmarked with life mines, cast a gory, rusty pall over the entire neighborhood. Graceful old mansions and ostentatious new terrors alike. The big planet cleared the roof of Miranda's unhappy home, and the dancer lent both objects a brief, mildly disgusted glance over her shoulder. She had only been allowed to choose the doors and stairs. The concentric rings of golden minerals below her feet seemed to blink at the ugly glare as her little shadow, her lithe shadow flickered over them. Miranda rapped on the door of a small lean-to that was hidden in another copse near the intruder. This summoned the faithful coachman who had been awaiting her there. With a deferential bow, the man marched to the parking pulley at the curbside. He began to crank the machinery, thin guinea skin gloves protecting his hands from the work. A few good turns, and the street in front of the house vibrated slightly. At a leisurely pace, a large block of cobblestones detached itself from the surrounding stones and sank 6 inches into the earth, and then began to retract below the street. The panel revealed a dark hole, twice the size of a grave. A platform slowly rose up from below ground, bearing a light phaeton hitched to a patient guinea horse, who looked only mildly surprised. He was still chewing some straw. At her habitual swift canter, the Lady Miranda flew at the carriage and disappeared within, like a minnow flitting under a yacht. Parking on the street surface was illegal in the City of Heaven. The habitable portion of the moon was too small to waste space on wide streets. In the merchant and entertainment districts, each business found room for a handful of underground parking spaces, and they rented them out per hour for about what a mortal wage earner took home in a month. Miranda was headed out on a shopping trip, which would require the use of such a parking space for several hours. Well, that's what she told her husband she was going to do. What she forgot to mention to him was that she would first pick up the slight figure lurking in the magnolia, and the carriage would make a stop for privacy on the way to the shops. Or at least that was what she had told that person. The faithful driver was supposed to pull the carriage up to the tin magnolia grove and open the door just long enough to let Electra aboard. But instead, the carriage drove rapidly past the rendezvous point and took off down the street. Miranda's heart-shaped face, moon pale, appeared in the window for half a second and gave the magnolias only a single glance of warning, of rejection, before continuing toward the theater district. "Keep calm, Electra," said the caked figure to herself, but a shock of anger ran up and down her spine. "She's probably got the place wrong. She misunderstood my note. She's not picking me up here. She's meeting me in Softon. Or Caniston? Oh, shit." Electra had sent Miranda the message via a drama-loving dressmaker, a ditzy but talented mortal girl who often made house calls at the Beaulieu residence. She'd been entrusted with a slip of cloth stitched with the two girls' secret code. "Pick me up at your place" could have been interpreted as "meet me at our bar," couldn't it? Or "meet me at our cafe by the Palace Theater." On the other hand, no, Electra was rationalizing. She did that a lot, especially with Miranda. But this time, at least, she had noticed what she was doing. "Fat lot of good noticing does me," Electra snarled to herself. "Great, I'm thinking rationally. That and a $5 will get me some stench leaf tea. Now I have to wonder what she's ditching me for. Or who? Who? No, she wouldn't do that to me." Electra could already feel the burning desire in her body go bitter and painful with disappointment, like a shock to the chest. Miranda stood her up too often, and the bitterness made it difficult to figure out whether her own thoughts were indeed rational at all. Was Miranda being cruel? Or was she herself unreasonable? You could only expect the wife of an immortal to sneak away from her situation a limited number of times per month, but these days it seemed like Miranda had second thoughts more often than not. She never thought of how Electra felt, how she might suffer without her touch. Or was that only Electra's mind grinding its gears? She could interpret a look, a note, 1,000 different ways, depending on her mood. Oh, those clouding chemicals. Oh, that head she was trapped in. Before puberty, Electra had possessed a halfway decent brain, or so she recalled. But now, sex hormones aside, she was usually full of a flickering mix of life, lunar vodka, and bitterness. For one glamorous moment while they were both at theater college, Miranda had been all hers. They were the most admired couple in school, even drawing attention away from the immortal girls. Then Hippolyte Beaulieu and his stupid immortality had come along and swept the dancer into his golden guinea carriage. Now Miranda had everything: social standing, eternal life, fame, and money. The only fly in her ointment was the fact that she was in a heterosexual marriage. This would have been quite risque amongst the mortal caste to which she was born, and whose fertility
Oh, I think you may have just disconnected your mic. Did anyone else lose her?
Yeah, audio's gone for me too.
Yeah, your audio just went out.
Yeah, I can't hear any audio either.
Your mic is on mute right now. I don't know if that's intentional or unintentional.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Am I still muted?
Oh, definitely, we can hear you.
Yep, I hear
Oh,
you.
okay. Yeah, for
Yeah,
some
sorry
reason.
about that. I was muted. But yeah, we can hear you clearly now. It's a little louder now, so yeah, so it should be good.
Okay, cool. I'm trying to get all my equipment going. For some reason,
You might want to take your mic volume down just a notch. I know you got very loud when you switched over.
okay. Go to settings. Somebody should tap dance right now. Wow. Where in settings can I fix my mic volume on Zoom?
I can screen share or help you. Go to where your audio is, and then it'll go to audio settings, like where it says mute.
Right.
And then
I've got his
just
mute.
put automatically adjust microphone volume.
Oh, okay.
Which I just did right now.
Or I could plug my headphones back in.
There's that little by mute. There's that little. You'll see. There's that little like caret there. That little tiny arrow pointing up. If you on the upper right hand corner of the button, if you click on that, then audio settings.
There we go. Okay. Oh, all I get is automatically adjust microphone volume, but I've already got that clicked.
Just above that, there should be a slider that you can adjust.
Maybe I will try plugging the headset back in.
I'm just kidding.
All right. Is
Yeah.
that better? Okay.
Oh.
Okay, cool.
Now, can't hear you.
Everyone
can
should
you
just
hear me?
interpretive dance right now.
Yeah. Actually,
I
when I
love
don't know
when you
what
said you could absolutely fucking swear, by the way.
Where the hell are my cats? Usually when shit like this happens, my cat's face is right next to the screen, and like everyone's like, "Oh!" for like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
I feel like that sometimes.
Yeah, I had to give up my micro. Not my. I had to give up my seat to my cat earlier. You can't really see him because he's a black cat, but I had to give up my computer chair.
Black cats
Not
are
in
the
some
best.
hardback wooden thing.
They really are. My brand new computer, which I haven't even paid for yet, just refuses to charge. So I'm gonna have to.
I mean, I'm hearing you pretty clearly now. I think. Can everyone else hear her pretty clearly?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I think we can just. If you want to just pick up where you left off, I think we're good.
All right. Like I said, the computer I was reading off of decided to just take a shit right now, so I'm trying to download it onto my shitty old Chromebook.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah,
Which
that
is
happens.
why I had a cat. I said, which is why I wish I could find my cat so that I could force him to entertain you for however long it's going to take. Come on, you can download it. You can do it. Come on.
Those Chromebook feels, am I right?
Come on, you can do it, little guy. And I'm also reading a way too long section to begin with. Anybody want to talk about how very, very, very difficult it is to elevator pitch, much less select a reading selection from a novel is? Holy cow! Especially when you're...
Do you want to talk about how hard it is to be zooming in the same room as your boyfriend who's zooming with the girl he's cheating on you with?
Oh my lord!
Yikes!
That's my life.
Thanks.
Okay, I'm sick of my real life story. How about while we wait for old Bessie here to download this, you tell us about that?
Oh, that's really it, really.
Yeah, that's pretty much all.
Powerful microfiction either way.
It's not fiction.
That's
unless you were talking to someone else. I'm sorry.
No,
Oh, no, sorry.
I
I do that when I don't know what to say. My bad.
You should say, "I feel so bad for you, you poor soul."
I do feel bad for you. You
Yay!
poor soul.
I understand that situation to a degree I wish I didn't.
Oh.
So I feel for you.
Yeah, I think.
Wait,
I think
who's talking? I can't hear.
everyone-
I can't. Fuck. Who's
It was
that?
me, Hestia.
Did I lose count of
Hestia.
again? Oh,
Oh, hello.
Ah!
I, William, we have the same face right now.
Okay, I can't hear anything. Clearly, this computer can't touch its nose and its toes at the same time. Maybe I will have to read this off of my phone. Uh-oh. Can anyone hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yep.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
It's just an uncomfortable silence.
Yeah, that's okay.
Ah.
I didn't know,
mean,
does anyone have any other like therapeutic confessions they have to make?
Sometimes I read my old emails just to be dissed by them. Like, here's an excerpt. You offer nothing I want, nothing of value. Goodbye. Have fun in New York with your 8 Xanax, which I think is like the best diss ever.
That
It's
is a
like
good one.
it's the ending of a whole email, but have fun in New York with your 8 Xanax. It's amazing.
Y'all niggas, bro, y'all better turn y'all speakers down, bro. I don't give no fuck, bro. I don't care if the music loud, nigga. I'm not your daddy, nigga. Turn your speakers down.
Oh, here we go.
We're getting rated.
Bye, Ryan. Bye, Ryan.
Oh shit.
You know what? I'm just gonna mute him and leave him here for a little bit.
Honestly, it's extremely considerate that they would raid while we're having an awkward silence and need extra entertainment anyway.
Yeah.
That's like,
Yeah,
I was thinking that too.
yeah, no, just impeccable timing. Thank you, Ryan.
We really have had some of the most perfectly timed trolls in all of these.
Yeah.
Oh, we've got someone else who wants to come in. We'll see if this is legit or a troll.
Can we just let it run if it's a troll, just to see what happens?
Yeah, just see what they're gonna do.
We'll just say nothing.
We'll clap.
So, just out of curiosity, Rudy, who do we have up for the open mic after Anne's done?
There's not anybody currently signed up in the open mic, but if you want to, just jump in there.
Okay, cool. Yeah, if you want to read after Anne's done, just put something in the chat. And I know, Rudy, you had something you wanted to read as well, right? Oh, we've got Jane for the open mic, so.
Okay, cool.
seems like we've lost Anne once again.
Yeah,
did-
I see.
Is she gone? Oh.
It looks like she's dropped.
All right. I think Jane, how long is the piece that you were going to read, roughly?
I don't know how long reading it, but it's a short one. It's my first thing I put out through Expat.
Oh, cool. Yeah, why don't you?
I love that one.
Why don't you maybe read now, and if Anne comes back, we'll just let her pick up where she left off once you're done.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay.
I'll drop the link in the chat quick.
Sweet, thank you.
So this is the first piece I ever had published. It's called Kissed. It's a little short fiction thing, I guess, that oh, hello.
Hey, Tyler. Bye, Tyler.
Do I need to be paying this man?
No, right?
Misery Tourism didn't compensate their contributors.
Sorry about that,
Okay.
Jade. I guess that's the halftime show or whatever. Take it away.
No, once again, it's like impeccable timing to get that out of the way. That's the tone. But
The
this
sad
is a
thing
show.
is I had minimized Zoom to tweet out the link to what you were going to read, so I didn't catch it until it had been going on for a while. Sorry about that.
It was going on for like 15 seconds. It's so fine. But yeah, this is a short piece I wrote for Expat close to a year ago now, called Kissed. I'm just gonna go ahead and do it. She began with my legs. Nibbling at my toes seemed innocuous enough that neither of us had to acknowledge what she was doing, but playful enough that it would be clear that we were on the same page. So I was surprised when she seemed to feel legitimately caught when I told her that I understood and that it was more than okay. Maybe she was just putting on an act to be flirtatious. Either way, she quickly regained her composure and continued taking me down her throat. It would take her months just to get done with my legs, trying the carefully measured portions in different ways to see how she most enjoyed me. In the end, my thighs nourished her, and I would no longer have been able to escape if I found myself inclined to, but I hadn't realized yet how tactical this all was. I still thought her strategy was purely linear, and this seemed confirmed when her mouth proceeded to move up to my genitals. She kissed, sucked, and explored the depths of them, and I came magnificently, expecting it to be the last time, expecting the devouring to begin at any moment, but it never did. No, the next thing she ate was my liver, explaining between bites that she wouldn't want any hypothetical poison that entered me not to take me completely because she didn't want to share. Understandably, she immediately seemed desperate to lighten the mood after that, biting through my cheeks melodramatically and giving me a grin I was clearly meant to reciprocate. I did, and would have done so silently in previous relationships, but found myself caring enough to ask why she had chosen my cheeks. I'm not sure if she could tell that she blushed at this, or if she realized that this told me all I needed to know. But her answer was more or less trying to convince me that it was just a whim. Our pauses we both took in the fact that we had clearly lost the initial, nearly weightless conspiracy between us, then her confirming that it had been transformed into a more substantial version of itself when she asked me what she should eat next. Fairly quickly, we agreed that she should reduce my senses to touch, as she ate my eyes, then ears, then nose, but left my tongue. I became worried that she was holding out for a day when she changed her mind and asked me to take a turn devouring her instead, but she swore it was just for French kissing, and I made myself believe her. I'll admit that I seem sexually optimized at this point, and she's held off on eating any more of me while we explore the implications of this, but I know she'll finish the job eventually. She loves me too much to leave me as this plaything.
I love the turn that piece takes. I didn't anticipate it at all.
Yeah, definitely.
I love it so much.
Yeah, I really wanted to bury the lead, bury the lead. I've never known the pronunciation of that terminology before. But
I think Anne is back, question mark. Or is she kind of, I think she's kind of in limbo here. I'm not sure, but thank you so much, Jane, for that. That was fantastic.
yeah, always a pleasure to read it, please.
Agreed.
Oh, I see one Anne in the chat and one Anne that keeps entering and leaving the chat. Oh, there you are.
Hello.
Hey,
Oh, welcome
I
back.
actually, Jane read a little bit while you were gone, read a very short piece. So if you want to pick up where you left off, go right ahead.
Cool. From people's reactions, it sounds like I missed something awesome, but it wouldn't be the first time in my life.
Yeah, you missed a troll, basically.
Aw, those are the worst
Not
things
me.
to
I'm
miss.
not patrol. I want to defend myself there real
No, not
quick.
Jane. No, you missed another troll.
Yeah, if you can still hear me, oh shit, not again. I thought my brand new computer was broken, but it turns out my power strip just died. Can you not hear me again?
Your
Yes, we
life
can
is
hear you.
full
Yep,
of
please.
disaster.
It really is. Oh God, it started at the very end of August 2018 when that guy broke into my house, and it has.
Oh,
It's
Lord.
like it's been a roller coaster to hell ever since.
I need to do your astrological chart or something. Please?
I don't know what it is. I seem to have walked into some sort of sucking black hole of bad luck, and it just will not relent. I mean, somewhere in there I wound up getting engaged, but even like it's a full like cheesy romance novel / crime novel / medical drama. I even spent part of the time getting mistakenly thrown into a mental ward because I had 108-degree fever, and when I was brought to the emergency room, I put down that my employer was Bob Barker because I was tripping balls on fever.
Well, holy shit.
Oh boy.
That sounds like a real story in and of itself, I guess.
Yeah, it's like a story within a story within a story. I kind of feel stupid writing fiction now. I used to make fun of people who write autobiography because most of them are boring, but I can't make this shit up. Like my last
Mix
2
it up,
years.
man. You know, write both.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to because, and this isn't self-deprecation. This is just I'm kind of impressed by whoever's writing this shit. Like the events of my past 2 years just put my actual fiction writing to shame as far as creativity goes. And like I'm writing about people getting revenge in outer space, you know, but this shit is more
Ooh.
far-fetched than that. So yeah, of course my power strip died. Like nothing happened to it. Animals didn't chew it. It just yeah, I don't feel like working now. Oh, that's the least of my problems. But anyway, back to my comparatively boring fiction. So, in the City of Heaven, being heterosexual and more specifically having children sunk your status because, you know, it's crowded, and especially if you're immortal, like the classy people don't want you breeding like rats. So this shadowy, mysterious government just kind of nudges people. You know, the way that Victorian times they used to nudge people into being heterosexual. This society kind of feels a need to nudge people into being homosexual, and you know, people being what they are, most people just go along with what society says. So it's amazing how fast you can change sexual mores. But anyway, we were talking about our heroine's faithless girlfriend. So one of Miranda's flaws was her weakness for status. Despite the heterosexuality of the whole arrangement, Hipparchus had offered her marriage and eternity, or however many years of life she could tolerate.
Robot.
Uh-oh. I have robot voice.
Only when you read for some reason.
Which frankly was kind of badass, but
It's actually exactly what started when you read, and it stopped perfectly when you stopped.
Yeah, that happened for me too.
Sorry, it's just beyond me in terms. I don't even know. That was just like way too well timed.
It's like something's haunting you.
Yeah. I mean, who almost gets killed twice in 4 months? Who's not living in a war zone? Yeah.
Oh, now you're breaking up again.
All right, that it did it when you said like living in a war zone. Just
So, I think given the recurring computer issues and stuff, and given that you were able to read at least a little from your book, I think with your permission, maybe we'll move on to the next person in the queue.
the book is out, at least. Well, I had to switch cover artists because one of them, his business closed for COVID, so he couldn't get the iPad. So I got another guy to do the cover design. But there is a Kindle version that you can read if you're just burning to find out how Miranda's husband and Elektra wind up getting revenge on her ex-girlfriend together. But maybe at a later date I'll finish.
And I bought The Talkative Corpse, so I'm going to read that tonight.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Oddly enough.
And if anyone else is interested, I put a link to the book in the chat a while ago, and I also put a link up on Twitter in the thread for the reading. So, so anyone else? We're kind of in open mic territory now. Rudy, do we have anyone else up?
Nope. It doesn't look like anybody's in the queue yet.
Now, Rudy, you wanted to read. You told me beforehand you had something, right?
Yeah, I have a couple short pieces to read.
Oh, and it looks like Eris has something too. So maybe we'll do you, Eris, Brandon. Where are you at with the piece you were writing?
Oh, did he? Oh, he's still here.
He's here. I think maybe he's.
Oh. Yeah, mine's ready to go, but you and Rudy have to read the pieces you were talking about before I read mine.
Okay, so we'll do Rudy, Eris. Did I forget? And then Brandon. I'm not sure if I'm going to read tonight. We'll see if there's time, but usually whenever we're kind of short on time, I cut whatever I was going to read because I don't know. It makes it easier on my social anxiety here. So. Rudy, why don't you take it away?
Yeah. Sorry to butt in. I didn't really get a chance to say anything, but Anne, I really love the life thing, the drug. I love it when sci-fi books play around with like human lifespan. That's a really good trope that I really appreciate, and the way it's done there is awesome.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm going to mute my mic now.
Okay, so I have excuse me. I have a couple pieces to read here. One is a poem. I don't really have links to them, at least that I can find. I have links to the second piece that I'm going to read, and I can get that for you in just a second here. But this first poem is called The Beautiful Bitch. Sometime after you died, my beautiful Sigrid, after the long drop that broke my neck but not my spine, after I joined the 27 Club years before it was filled with morphine addicts or Negroid pretenders, I was picked up by a Valkyrie and propelled upwards like a V2 rocket. But since all dogs go to heaven, we were, unfortunately, not reunited, and Valhalla is basically shit without you. Here there is endless war, which is a cool idea, but not done right at all. The men and women are separated, a practice I can attest is efficient but really boring. I dwell in a lodge marked with some symbols that look like graves, and many others incoherent, where there is a ceiling made of round shields that serves poorly to keep out rain, and no food but spirits always on tap. Me and about 500 other women toil cobbling together boots from the scraps of what must be all the shoe leather ever, sharpening spears with no point, and, when our taskmasters permit, building roads through fields whose natural glow necessitates eye protection. We are not given any. When the day has exhausted me, and the mead relaxes inhibitions enough to speak candidly with my kindred bulk, I tell them about you, about the hills around Ravensbrook, where you used to ferret out rabbits and more clever vermin. I talk of your small ears that perked up when your favorite kosher deli operator, a Kaufman if I recall, was nearby and permission might be granted to snatch some meat. I think back about days at work that were so dark after you departed, my beautiful Sigrid, when I would leash a less worthy, less U-shaped beast in your harness, forgive me, and scoff as its eyes oscillated between states of bold staring and apprehension, transgression that warranted in all cases a good snoot boop. Anyway, the clash of armies here is oppressively loud. I wish they would eschew medievalist values and invent weapons more wondrous or at least lethal to splinter giant skulls more precisely, spies more methodical and data-driven to counter Loki's tricks, and science more whiz-bang to tame these grim lands which have never beheld electric light. My personal preference is a front at some distance, with hushed explosions so that I can assure you that they are just thunder. And who's got the lightning bolts? Who's got the lightning bolts? Who? Is that a good doggy with a vest of 2 lightning bolts? When the Fuhrer said 1,000 years, it's possible he was counting into the afterlife. And though I would prefer a terrestrial victory, I'll definitely be satisfied plunging a spear into a giant with a weird hooked nose, should it come to that. And when this land is purified by our fire, I will be first to ride that dejotunized ship of nails through the firmament, unless a plane is available, pick you up at the gates that shine, though not as brightly as your coat, and return to the place where I planted lovely flowers and a more lovely you, so that we can reunite or resume old duties, chasing rabbits, running away with bones, and marking territory. When we meet again, we will just hang, my darling. Companions forever, giving sway to our gnarly part of the world tree. And that is the first piece.
Udi, do you want to provide some context about that one?
Yeah, this is about it's about a Nazi concentration camp guard. I believe her name was Dorothy Bricks or something like that. But she had a dog that she was really fond of, and that's kind of where the story of the poem came out of. It's kind of it's from a collection of poetry that's about basically evil or crazy people, but it's kind of like made into a slice of life fantasy type of thing. It's kind of weird, but
yeah, is the poetry collection available anywhere? Is it
I can link it afterwards in the on the was it the itch.io or whatever?
Yeah, that would be great. That would be great, because some of what you've done with that collection is so like weird and subversive, and I think some people would probably like to check that out. I know that piece really like I really like that poem in particular, because I think it takes this kind of like very cliched and sentimental kind of story, which is like the like where the red fern grows or something, which is like about this kind of glorification of like the noble pet or the martyred pet or whatever, and gives it such a dark and like vicious twist, and that really undermines like the bathos of those kind of stories. So anyway,
thanks. Where the red fern grows was definitely big mood for that one while I was writing it. So
yeah, I remember when they made us read that in like middle school or whatever, and it was like one of the worst reading experiences of my life. Anyway,
it was a terrible story.
Sorry to interrupt you.
But here's the next one. I'm going to put it in chat. I think this is the right link here. This is a game. It's a 200-word RPG, which was made for the legendary 200-word RPG contest, which I was actually banned from this past year. But either way, that's another story. So this one is called Homefronting. 1945, you're 12. You and the remnants of your Flakhelfer unit are arguing over which is scarier, the war or the supposedly haunted house you've taken shelter in. To play, you need 4+ players. Everyone gets a flashlight, markers, and a fist-sized water balloon. Create a playlist of ghost/war sounds and silent tracks of varying lengths. Enable shuffle. Play in pitch black darkness while you're sleepy or laying down. To play, start the playlist. Hold the water balloon between your legs. Take a side in the argument. You're kids, be hyperbolic. Be goofy, be winsome, break the rules. Whenever a sound plays, squeeze your knees together until they're touching while simultaneously recounting your war experience with enough bravado to hide your fear. If the balloon breaks, you peed yourself. Your war stories are assumed true until you're accused of being a pants pisser. If accused, you must illuminate your balloon and verify your courage. Keep flashlights off otherwise. If your balloon is intact, the accuser permanently joins your side of the argument. If not, your war record becomes questionable. Continue until someone falls asleep. Questionable record? Draw mean words and pictures on the sleeper's face. Untarnished record? Decorate your arms with drawings of medals you'll never earn. And that's that one.
I love the way that one ends. It's such a, I don't know, it's such a like wonderfully like melancholy note to what's otherwise like a really fucking wonderfully silly game. And I love that like idea of the degree to which like for those kids the war would be like entirely in their imagination, would be just like a kind of like you know, a ghost story. So yeah.
Yeah, I was really inspired by Jojo Rabbit actually, and also a comment that somebody made on Twitter that was like it was about his daughter talking about like which one was scarier, like ghost sounds coming from above you or ghost sounds coming from below you in the house or something like that. It was a really interesting comment, I thought, and that kind of inspired it. But
yeah.
As far as the banning, Mullane, I was banned for making a story or making a game about scientists being haunted by the ghosts of gender. They banned me and disqualified me from the contest because apparently it was against the inclusivity standard or something that they made up. So yeah.
Man, it's fiction.
Honestly, I was not expecting that to be the thing that got you banned.
I wasn't either. And yeah, I know I don't know what the deal was with it. But yeah.
I mean, what really happened is Rudy had won the 200 word RPG contest the previous year and had been a finalist the year before that. And he had included a link to our website in the profile. And then that year, the last year, they made a bunch of changes to the rules, and someone went through and looked at all the old profiles and found the link to our website and basically scoured every inch of Misery Tourism looking for offensive things, and then compiled like a dossier and posted it on an obscure subreddit. And so I think at that point,
please drop the call out post. Please drop it. I need to see it.
I will if I can find it. It's
I can find it.
I can find it.
He probably has it bookmarked. But yeah.
Okay, this is a very concrete example of something I've been suspecting has been going on for some time, especially since you were apparently a talented contender in that little micro society. You know, there are so many writers. What's up? Yeah, this is my kitty.
Sorry, I said, what do you mean in Russian for some reason?
I mean that there are so many writers out there that it's pretty daunting, and for people who inexplicably somehow want to become famous as writers despite not really being good at writing or having any talent or wanting to concentrate on their actual writing, they're trying to take people out for whatever reason they can come up with. And cancel culture is a great way to virtuously get rid of people who are better than you.
Yeah, I don't want to get into I don't want to get too far out of the range of the scope of the reading, but I do agree with you to some degree. I think there's no question in my mind that some of these quote unquote cancellations are really about professional jealousy or attempting to take someone who has built a career either out of good fortune or out of talent or whatever, and attempting to kind of derail them. And in other times, it's not even professional jealousy. Like there are some instances where it's simply like there's some kind of simmering personal feud and it boils over into like into like attempting to destroy their professional life. And I think that's really sad. Which isn't to say there are also some instances unequivocally like your Harvey Weinsteins and so forth, where Bill Cosby, where really like insidious, like disgusting human beings have been exploiting their position to use and abuse other human beings. But I think like while there are certainly some horrifying like examples of that, there are also plenty of examples where it's like this kind of attempt to control the discourse in some way or whatever. Anyway, I don't want to. I say I don't want to sidetrack us, and then I sidetrack us. Eris,
That's
I think
okay.
you're up next.
Wait, can I say things about Rudy's writing for a second?
Oh, sure, sure.
First of all, I just wanted to say, as someone who's like pretty gender fucked, the gender game that he wrote is like one of my favorite pieces of theorizing gender that I've ever read, and I like think it's so brilliant.
Okay.
I was gonna say too, it's really interesting because I feel like I really for a long time only knew you your writing as like writing games, and that was like most of what I saw you posting on Misery Tourism and around, and just like having over the course of basically these quarantine readings, various series, like hearing your other work, just like the width of different kinds of language you draw from is absolutely stunning in every piece. And it wasn't until hearing that next to one of your game pieces that I realized that you have sort of the same thing going on in your games. And the way that like having that variety of language become directions for what people are supposed to do, like really creates a very unique kind of just like demands that you're setting on people. It's just like really amazing. And I don't know, it's just like really cool to see how those two sides of your writing interface with each other. And I'm excited to go back and forth through some of the earlier pieces that I read and
Yeah, cool. Well,
try and
that
post
means a
about
lot.
those.
Thanks a lot for saying that. But yeah, a lot of my writing is informed by a lot of the same things as the games that I do, so it's pretty similar.
All right,
One of the-
so, oh, I'm sorry. Let me know when I need to read, that's all.
No, sorry. I was probably just going to repeat compliments about.
Oh, I think maybe you got cut off. Sorry.
Oh no, sorry. I didn't want Eris to go because
Oh, okay.
there's just too many good things to say about everyone. I could have said stuff about Jane's story, Kissed, but so many other people talked, and then I wanted to say stuff about Rudy's, but it's just there's not enough time to compliment everyone. Sorry, go ahead.
I just type it if I.
Yeah. So sorry about that, Eris. It's
No, don't be sorry.
back
I
to
love
you.
Jane. Oh my God. And also, I don't care about things like, hi, hello. Okay. So I wrote this one thing about Corey's hair one time because I'm a creep, and I'm gonna read it. Need to find it. All right. Vibing. 7th of March 2020. And this was inspired by his tweet where he said, "My friend told me everyone in high school thought I was gonna kill myself. LMAO, just vibing." Bruh, what's got you so down? Dumbass Deborah asks, not even looking at anything but a wall with a black felt poster colored with glow in the dark markers. You know, the kind of psychedelic stuff that people who listen to a lot of APC and Tool have, or at least when they're teenagers. Corey takes off his headphones in one beat. His Thrasher hoodie smells good, like him, not soap. There is nothing sexy about smelling like someone had to be sanitized. God, this is so creepy. Oh God, I'm so sorry. I want your sweat. I want to smell the cigarettes you smoked while thinking of me. Of course you think of me. Your hair is long and thick, and I bury my head in it while I lean against your shoulder, and I breathe your scent in like I'm trying to take in the biggest hit. I exhale only when my lungs make me. I exhale and am high off of you being real. This is how I center myself. I am a Buddhist. This is meditation. I keep the hair, Owen. It's like 8 hair and then Owen. Joke that floats in my head to myself for about 2 seconds and then say it, laughing about how awful of a joke it is. You tried to switch to vaping, but every time you vaped, I brought up Twin Peaks. You get off the beanbag chair and your voice is booming. The voice of an introvert interrupted at his vibing. For fuck's sake, Deborah, I am vibing. Go back to looking at your... Now it's me that yells at your completely inaccurate co-star app. God, I sit down and exhale. The nerve of some people. Oh no, Tool call out? No, I love people who love Tool.
No, I was just kidding, but yeah, Tool is awesome.
That was great. As usual, Eris.
It got her to leave the room.
You still having little interpersonal issues there?
Oh, you know me. Of course I am. And then do you guys want I want to read one more thing. It's either
Sure,
Memoir of a Form of Time Travel from 2011 or something I read from here. The
I don't
book
know.
pretty
I don't know,
short.
guys. What do you think?
Time travel sounds awesome to me.
All right. Presidents had long learned how to time travel. Come on, Bush. That fucking election, you know it. All those crazy mix-up, the way he jumbled his words. Too much time travel. I'm not vibing with that. I'm sorry. Okay. Where's my page? Corey, you have something really good in this too, huh? Someone can read while I look for the page. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I think we're good. Although I will say, who's up next? Is Brandon up next?
Yeah, I think B-Boy is next.
And do we have anyone who's signed up after Brandon?
I don't believe so.
No.
Oh, did you find it, Eris?
No, I found Corey's. Oh god. Okay.
So if anyone else does want to read after Brandon, you can just drop it in the chat then.
Or right now while I take forever. Oh, okay. Dear God. Okay. Choked at the end of our chains. This friendship isn't beautiful, but it is a great place to get lost. Reckless racing down a ravine littered with broken glass and the splintered wood of bridges that refused to burn no matter how much kerosene we invested in. Our bodies snuffed the matches out, never quite committing to resolute ash. Or maybe people like us were just incapable of being destroyed. If it was never enough, not for us. We hoped we could just burn on forever until the stars all died and darkness thickens like our breathing did when it was just the two of us in the back seat of a car that felt universes away from the bars of the grit that we crawled out of. She is my best friend because her parents were the kind of second-generation hippies that thought naming their daughter Blue Sky made for an automatic leap in character. Maybe they were right, because I've never met anyone else with that name, or anyone else like her. I love her completely, more than parties or clubs, more than my brothers or sisters, more than all of the books that we share on our shelves. I love her because of the mess she is, the mess she makes, the messes she makes. She's the best and the worst person I've ever met. Sometimes I can't tell her if I want to kill her, travel the world with her, or just get drunk in her bed. I love her because she had the same look on her face as I did when that tequila-fueled circus performer of a friend of ours ate light bulbs without batting an eye in our stolen canoe. I love that she's willing to beat me senseless with beach debris to get me out of going to work. I love that we gave a piece of taxidermy we rescued from the side of the road an honorary medical degree. I love the fact that we shudder and snicker simultaneously at the mere mention of old lovers. I love that she let me decorate her roof with stolen wildflowers and drove me to the hospital when I fell off the side. That I found her more than once on the roof of a grocery store or on the tracks of a train with mascara-covered cheeks and whiskey breath. I love her. Most nights we fall asleep in the car. We crank the seats all the way back and run the battery down to its volts while we leave the radio on. We came up with the next great plan, the next great foray into conjoined madness. We author children's books about semi-absorbed twins, and we wonder aloud about the much-needed existence of serial killers anonymous meetings. We fall asleep like that, fingers entwined, choked at the end of our chains. And El Nash really helped me with that. So, yeah.
I love how melancholy that is. It's so, like, in a way, very unlike the rest of your writing, but I think you really capture. I mean, it was still, like, your writing in general is pretty hilarious most of the time, and that was still a very funny piece, but it was really, like, it was sad in a way that I think a lot of your writing isn't, and that really, really caught me.
Wow. You guys are the best feedback. Thank you. Because I have no self-awareness about how, yeah. Thank you.
I think Brandon, I believe, is up next. So Brandon, the question is, did you finish it? Did you finish what you were writing over the course of the last hour?
I have 7 paragraphs ready to go.
Wow.
Wow.
Considering that I
By the
started
way,
this.
please buy this. Okay. That's all.
Wait, put the link to the in the chat.
Yeah, please do it.
Okay.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, seconding that is very good.
Self-promotion is
awesome.
the only promotion.
For most of us, yeah. All right, people, I take it away.
All right. This is, honestly, it's an untitled, mostly disposable piece, kind of as a little thought experiment that I started at about 7:30, so half an hour before we started the reading, and I finished at about 8:15. All right, here we go. What a smug piece of human shit, I thought to myself as I sat on the back seat of the bus. It was crowded, but then mass transit always was. From wall to wall of the steel, well, probably not steel, that seems too expensive these days. Aluminum, maybe. Cabin, it was nothing but the huddled masses. I'd grown to hate these trips back and forth, but really, they were necessary. It wasn't the time-consuming nature of the stop-start nature of public transportation that bothered me most. It was the unsufferable people, so intent on fitting in that they stuck out like a mutilated limb. This trip I felt especially sickened as I slumped against the padded seat cushion and stared at nothing in particular. Try as I did, my eyes kept flicking into focus on the back of the head of one of the young blonde-haired men at the front of the bus. They were the most tiring of them all, walking around the East Village like they ran the place. Fucking fascistic pricks. I couldn't help but study the faintest of stubble that graced the base of his neck, as if perhaps he'd gone more than 48 hours without a freshened-up coiffure. Disgraceful. It was kept short up to the crown, then swept mechanically to one side and slicked down into place as if with paste. So predictable, so without a soul. They all looked the same. He and his companions were all facing forward, but I didn't need to see the faces to know exactly what would be looking back at me. The same cleanly shaven cheeks for most, and the cookie-cutter mustache on the others, impeccably styled. Done up in designer clothing like it was some kind of uniform. Boss, Vuitton, Dior. Trappings of wealth dumbed down and discounted to some sort of militarized surplus store markdown, like a thrift shop superhero where even the little differences seemed like mundane knockoffs. It was just all too familiar to have any impact anymore. We'd seen it too many times to still have any real kind of meaning. The bus slowly came to a stop and the brakes let off their usual signaling. I watched as the man I'd unintentionally been studying for the past 15 minutes rose up. Sure enough, as he turned just so, there was the carefully trimmed mustache and the bright blue eyes behind thickly rimmed black glasses. Must be trying to create some affectation of being clever. Maybe he just had shitty vision. That'd be delightfully ironic, wouldn't it? These people, no, these pretentious primates, they think themselves so superior as if they believe that they were born better than anyone else. He and his traveling companions moved to the door and descended to the street. I'd had enough of their arrogance, unspoken as it were. I pushed myself from the seat with a long breath of resignation and brushed past the others through the narrow trail left amongst the bodies, narrowly escaping the sardine can of the bus and spilling out onto the streets of the East Village. It took me a moment, but I spotted them quickly enough, moving in lockstep, side by side as if in formation. I followed, not as graceful or as practiced or as measured as they were, but I followed all the same. They marched about as if lords of the place, as though part of a regime that couldn't be questioned, that couldn't be doubted, that couldn't be faulted. I trudged along like the erstwhile cockroach that I must have resembled by comparison. I knew this place better than most. I scurried along and hurried on, reaching the opening of a twisting alley behind the main drag and called out to them, "We need help over here." And I knew they'd come. What better chance to make themselves visible as heroes up to the masses? What better chance to earn recognition and remind their neighbors of where they stand? No opportunity to help means anything without an opportunity to be seen helping, after all. I gestured within. "My friends here, they've been hurt. Perhaps you can help them get to the street, at least before help can get here." And they did, just as I had hoped they would. I let them walk a few meters into the darkness, away from the street lights that weren't quite needed out in the open, but would have been dreadfully welcomed here. That was when I drew my hand from my pocket, took aim with the cold steel of the pistol, and with 3 quick pulls of the trigger, 3 clarion calls of bullets firing, I left 3 fresh holes in the backs of 3 young skulls, trailing the same shade of red that each wore upon their arm as a band. Done.
Fuck yeah.
God damn.
Damn.
I said, God damn.
Man, that was powerful.
Thank you.
Yeah, Jesus. It was what, like an hour and 17 minutes it took you to write that or something?
About 45, 50.
Okay, thanks for letting me know. I just wanted to say, I don't think I'm familiar with a lot of your writing, but I've heard you read out a few of these things, and I feel like a lot of what you've written has been really like metaphorical and sort of remembrance in a way, like sort of detached from things. And I felt like this piece in a way really went a very opposite direction of being very like immediate experience and literal and just like recounting details that you were seeing, but felt like the same sort of vivid, imagistic kind of thing going on. And it's like, I think it really works for you as a style. I was really looking for that.
Yeah, this is definitely grittier, I feel, than a lot of the rest of your things. Definitely got that bit.
Yeah, like pulpier. Although
Yeah.
even like your monologues are kind of pulpy. I mean, I get that same kind of like hard-boiled kind of noir narrator sort of sensibility from them too. So,
Yeah, that's definitely a big inspiration point for me, so thank you.
So did anyone else want to read? Oh, guess not. Anyone up?
You.
Oh,
Oh, okay, or not.
No. I can. I said before.
You have to complete the trilogy.
Given
Yeah.
given what Rudy and Brandon read and some of the other stuff, I guess maybe I'll read some of I've got a couple of, like quasi nonfiction, quasi biographical pieces I could read. These are a little on the quote unquote edgy side, so I apologize for that. But
Bring it on.
here we go. This first one is, I can't even pronounce it. Great when I pick a piece to read, I can't even pronounce the title. This first one is a pretty old piece. I think one of the oldest pieces I have up on the website. It's called Leben Sonwärts Leben. I wish you could get a prescription for a suicide pill. He depressed the gas pedal slightly, and we lurched forward, a foot or so closer to the drive-through order box. While he spoke, I squinted at the illuminated board, trying to make out the list of combo meals. In front of us were 2 cars and a pickup with 6 exuberant teens in varsity uniforms in the bed. I mean, I know the pharmaceutical companies need to make their money, he continued. That's fine. You just need to do some gatekeeping. Like, don't just give it to anyone. Make the person jump through all the hoops first. Have them see a Rothschild-approved psychiatrist and do talking therapy or behavioral therapy or whatever. Make them try at least 6 different colors of pills. Adjust their dosage a few dozen times, I don't care. But there has to be a moment where they sit you down and say, hey buddy, we've tried it all. How about we discuss an exit strategy? I can give you a referral. He paused as we pulled up to the order box. In front of us, the pickup had reached the window. The truck's rear window slid open and 3 large paper bags were passed into the bed. One boy tried to pitch a container of fries to another and missed. I watched the box arc towards us, and I thought it might hit our windshield, but the pitch came up short, and the red box fell through the beam from our headlights and landed out of sight. He ordered 4 hamburgers. I'm going to eat them all in my bed, slip into a diabetic coma, and sleep on top of the wrappers, he told me earlier. I ordered a chicken sandwich, lettuce, tomato, no condiments, I stipulated, and a strawberry shake. When we got to the window, we were told they needed a couple of minutes to prepare the chicken sandwich. They didn't keep any ready on the grill after 10. And if we waited in the parking lot, someone would run our order out to us. It's the culture of hope that's the worst thing, I told him, picking up the conversation. It's bad enough to feel like shit, but it's worse to constantly be told that you will get better, that you can get better, when really you can't. Some people just don't. You know how much of a relief it would be to be told, sorry, but there's nothing more we can do. You're too sick, too old, and you're not going to get better. But here, he interrupted, let me write you a prescription. Take this and it'll be over. Just make sure you're all paid up first. And people would do it too. People would take the Zoloft and the Abilify and go to all the sessions and gain 300 pounds and shit purple and green. If they knew at the end of it all, they could get a script for something that would put them down. I know I would. I know I'm fucked. The Nazis had it figured out. Leben Sonwärts Leben, life unworthy of life. He had an encyclopedic knowledge of Nazi terminology. He regularly had at least 3 or 4 tabs open to Third Reich-themed Wikipedia pages. Earlier that day, after watching a promo for Veep, he had said, I wish there was a show like that, but set in Germany in 1942. You know, with the whole Nazi high command being dicks to each other, screwing up and exchanging barbs or whatever. Lots of oops shit. They find out that a concentration camp officer didn't use enough Zyklon B in the gas chamber, and all the Jews and gypsies were just left standing there, waiting to be deloused. Hitler calls Rudolf Hess a dipshit. Eichmann makes a dramatic entrance, and everyone rolls their eyes. I slid down in the passenger seat and propped my feet against the glove box. The problem is that there's no such thing as palliative care for depression. The expectation is always that someday, somehow, you will get better. No one will admit that the condition is terminal, no matter how intractable the symptoms, so it's never just about relieving the pain. Right, he said, that's right. He didn't have to say it. We had known each other for long enough and had these discussions so many times that there was no need for affirmation. We had the same subtly bitter, pseudo-psychic connection shared by old married couples, and just as much hope of escape in a new life. Sometimes I would lose track of which of us was talking and would have to listen to the sound of my voice to see if it was his or my own. And I am so tired of people telling me to focus on getting healthy, I added. It's always, just worry about getting healthy. Getting healthy is the bodyguard blocking all the doors. Want a girlfriend? Get healthy first. Sick of being unemployed? Don't worry about it. Get healthy and then someone will want to hire you. How the hell are you ever supposed to get healthy alone in a vacuum with nothing, feeling worthless? How are you supposed to get healthy at all? A thin hand knocked on the window. A teenage girl, petite, bespectacled, small hoops in her ears, pink stars on her fingernails, was standing next to the car, holding a white paper bag and a plastic cup. He rolled down the window and took the food from her. I dropped my shoes from the dash and thanked her without looking at her face. I sipped my shake as we pulled out of the parking lot. You know those hamburgers are probably mostly cellulose, right? They're like 40% wood pulp. I don't care, he said as he accelerated. I'm going to eat all of these tonight, and I'm going to roll around in the wrappers like a pig. So that's that one. And
Loved that a lot.
that was, like I said, that one was a little autobiographical. And you can probably guess who the other person is because he's in the call.
About psychiatry, I deny that.
You didn't say anything like that?
No.
I thought it was about me. What?
Some of it was fictionalized. Although the part where you suggested a Third Reich themed series based on Veep was definitely not fictionalized. Right. Anyway, I've got another semi-autobiographical piece that I wrote. I wrote this one when we had like a school shooting theme on Misery Tourism. I'm actually going to read the little disclaimer or whatever I put at the top. This one's called The Edgelord at 35. And I wrote this when contemplating my 35th birthday last year. Okay, the following sad, meandering autobiographical piece began as an attempt to write an essay to introduce Misery Tourism's first monthly content theme, school shootings. I was hoping to illuminate the role that school shootings have played in defining my generation. Those of us who are too young to be Gen Xers, but a little too old and quite a bit too jaded and nihilistic to be millennials, and who are rapidly and pointlessly approaching middle age. Instead, I birthed a bunch of navel-gazing, self-loathing trash. It has no literary, diversionary, or moral merit. It probably shouldn't be published at all, but since Schadenfreude is our stock in trade, hey, here you fucking go. Okay. Cho Sang-woo died like Jesus Christ, but I've outlived both of them now. Cho by more than a decade, Jesus by nearly 2 years. I'm too old to be a martyr, even in my own eyes. I wonder how James Holmes would have put it. You either die a spree killer or you live long enough to see yourself become what? Not a victim. Statistically, that's unlikely. Not even a victim. An adult, maybe, but I'm not even recognizable as that. I still look like one of them. The skinny, liminal frame, not quite the body of an adolescent, not fully that of a grown-up. The round, undifferentiated, hairless face, an obvious product of testosterone deprivation, the aversion to eye contact, and the high school hallway slouch, the posture of an animal in a constant state of passive surrender. No, not an adult. So what then? What do you become when you've grown out of violence without growing into anything else? A faggot, I guess. That's the word we would have used, isn't it? Are you old enough to remember South Park's defense of fag? Did you laugh along? How many verses of the Marshall Mathers LP can you recite from memory? If you're older or younger or more well-adjusted than me, you probably think I'm a homophobe. I am a homophobe. I am a homo. The duality of life. That's it then. You either die a spree killer or live long enough to see yourself become a faggot. But James Holmes didn't die. He's sitting in a maximum security prison cell today. Too crazy for lethal injection, too real for Arkham. I wonder if one day, maybe not long from now, Wikipedia tells me he turns 32 in December, while perched on the rim of his state-issued toilet, with his jumpsuit around his knees, the Aurora Joker will catch his reflection in the stainless steel mirror. His hair, now its natural gray color, his hair, now its natural color, little Freudian slip there with inserting gray. His hair, now its natural color, perhaps thinner than it was a year ago. And think, Christ, what a faggot. Let me tell you my teen fantasy. I would lie on the couch in the living room, under a knit comforter saturated in dog and cat and human hair, with my eyes closed, and, if my concentration was stronger than the voices of the Southern Baptist preachers coming from the radio, that was never off and certainly was never on another station, I would imagine myself walking the halls of my Catholic middle school with a gun, of course. The gun was always some nondescript long-barreled rifle. I knew nothing about guns then, know nothing about guns now. I declined all of my father's offers to hunt with him. What a missed opportunity. I would imagine myself menacing my classmates and teachers with that rifle. I hated them, as I have hated and still hate many people. But I don't want to get into why. I thought I might. I thought it might be cathartic to dedicate a paragraph or two to talking about how I was bullied, or how my own unique otherness, as you fresh-faced identitarian children call it, made me a natural target, or how, actually, I was a pretty shit student. But it won't be. It'll just be obnoxious. It will breed more pity than empathy. And frankly, I owe you nothing. Writing is painful enough, a poor enough fit, a cramped crawl space that I'm trying cautiously and desperately to back out of before panic sets in. Insert your own pubescent embarrassment here. The point is, I hated them and thus the gun. I would point the gun at them. I would slide the barrel down their throats after backing them into the corner of a classroom. They could never run in my imagination, just cower and crouch. The school had no exits, and every hallway had a dead end. Maybe they would beg. I honestly don't remember. Some details are lost to time, and our fantasies are often more shorthand than lurid prose, even when we're young and angry. After I had tortured him, I would imagine what it would be like not to shoot. I would make myself lower the barrel, talk myself into walking away. This was an exercise in Christian forgiveness, you see? I thought I was teaching myself how to turn the other cheek, how to let go of my bitterness and transcend my rage. What a little faggot I was. Cho murdered 32 people at Virginia Tech the same day I was accepted into graduate school. It was an English PhD program at a nominal state school that I will not name. I spent most of the day reading the news online, and then my parents took me out to dinner. They were, I think, legitimately, unambiguously proud of me, possibly for the first and the last time. Afterward, they dropped me off at Rudy's house. I couldn't drive, still can't. I found him in his room, not yet thoroughly trashed, his windows unbroken at the time. He hadn't yet written uppity nigger on the wall in Ninja Turtle green acrylic paint. Watching a nature documentary. Update the Guinness Book, I said. We have a new fucking world record. Maybe I didn't say this. I said something about a new record, probably more artless. All remembered conversations are embellished. He looked at me uncomprehendingly. Oh, fuck, I said. You haven't heard the news? No, I've been watching the Discovery Channel all day. What happened? I told him. Of course it's an Asian. Rudy was talking from the bed, eyes on the ceiling, while I spun around in his computer chair, gleefully trying to induce nausea. Fucking model minorities, man. They get all the high scars. He probably didn't even have to use aim assist. We spent most of the night joking, bullshitting, and watching the news. We savored every detail. The Holocaust survivors' heroic sacrifice. Nikki Giovanni's self-serving rationalizations. Rudy, God, why couldn't he have shot her? Me. You're just another self-loathing black man. No respect for the voices of your generation. Richard McBeef, the girlfriend who was and wasn't. What a goddamn story. I don't remember the weather, but I choose to imagine a beautiful spring evening, grass edging towards life, cartoon songbirds, that smiling moon man from the McDonald's commercials, the works. Jonesboro, Columbine, Red Lake, Virginia Tech, they all happened in the spring. Elliot, not Roger, though he was another victim of the mating season, was on to something. I dropped out of grad school after a year. My life is full of missed opportunities. After the violence of spring, sometimes the summer we anticipated turns out to be nothing but a humid drag. It's easy to envy the fertilizer. I've only attended one party in the last decade, and it was a costume party. Theme, high school cliques, or was it cliches? My roommate was turning 25, another big milestone that seems quaint in retrospect. We had been friends for long enough that I could not decline. He suggested that I go into my room, I finished the sentence somehow without reading it. He suggested that I could go in my normal style of dress, black khakis, round glasses, polo shirt buttoned all the way to the top, and just say I was a nerd. Hell, I could bring one of my Dungeons and Dragons manuals if I needed a prop. I had a different idea. I found the black trench coat, too large, but that only made it more appealing, and camel pants at the first thrift store I visited, and the Korn t-shirt, also too big, at the second. My roommate let me borrow a pair of fingerless gloves and a baseball cap. The sports team insignia on the hat wasn't ideal, but it was going to be worn backwards anyway, so it was no major loss. The gun was trickier. I thought about buying a cheap water pistol, but today they all come in warped, impressionistic shapes and garish neon colors, more dildo than firearm. Reassuring to parents and trigger-happy but liability-averse cops, but not at all what I was looking for. My miracle came when the roommate discovered that his sister had a wonderfully realistic-looking BB gun, all black, an entirely believable reproduction of a Glock 9. My roommate's girlfriend, studying to become a music education teacher, the first member of her family to attend college, a working-class success story, was horrified. I don't want you to dress like that, she said. It upsets me. Roommate laughed and told her I wasn't going to listen to her. I didn't. I spoke to that roommate again a few months ago. He visited for my 34th birthday. He took me to the house he just bought, and I met his new wife. They both dropped out of college a few years ago. He's a postal worker, and she works at a factory. What's the appropriate cliche? They seemed happy and very much in love. I asked about his old girlfriend. He told me she had a mental breakdown, like her father. Schizophrenia ran in the family. She never graduated. One day she called her brother from Colorado and begged him to drive out east and bring her home with him. Someone had tried to hurt her. She was scared. They had an argument over her reckless driving, and she left him by the side of the highway in Nebraska. Last he heard, she had spent a few days in jail after skipping out on a restaurant bill and was living in her car in a Walmart parking lot. A working-class success story. The party was depressing. Flamboyant gay men in sports jerseys, morbidly obese girls in cheerleader uniforms. My roommate wore a Rastafari hat and drunkenly manipulated an acoustic guitar. Everyone was living their best lie. Contrary to the advice given by Matt Stone and Trey Parker in Bowling for Columbine, life does not necessarily get better after high school. I lingered at the periphery. I would like to say that I was maintaining character, but the truth is that no change of outfit would have made me any less a wallflower. Plus, I don't drink, so that didn't make things easier. If this were not a true story, now would be when I would awkwardly embarrass myself and perhaps have a moment of clarity about how my self-absorption and childish pretensions have isolated me from other human beings. But honestly, I had and shrugged off that realization years before, so I just passed the time in annoyed discomfort. My gun was fake, but the outcome would have been no different if it were real. I still have the costume. Someday, when senility sets in, my great-grandfather had Alzheimer's, the genetic potential is there, why should I expect to be spared? Maybe I will put it on and wander outside, not aimlessly, but with a profound and anachronistic sense of purpose, a meaning that outlives the mind. They won't let me have a gun, of course, but I will imagine one, and it'll be real enough for a nutty old piece of shit. Rudy will be dead by then, I'm sure, but if pop culture has educated me well about dementia, I'll still hear his voice. A role reversal. This time it will be him goading me on. He'll be the one who won't shut up, and I'll be mute but not lost. A manic bullet loaded in my ethereal clip for everyone I see who looks younger than me. 2, if they haven't lived in vain. Hopefully, by then, generations will have come and gone, and the eternal cycle of teenage rebellion will have passed from propriety to M, from inclusion to X, and some kid, high on whatever's fashionable, low on self-esteem, will gawk at me as I pass and say, with that tone of repulsed admiration that only a bitter juvenile delinquent can pull off, Jesus, look at that old faggot. And that's it. That was a long one, but it's done.
That was enjoyable. Very, very enjoyable. That was awesome.
Yeah, I really love this piece. I like how it's sort of spans an entire life and it feels almost timeless in that way. And I feel like I'm lacking for words, but in a way I feel like it's almost like the perfect misery tourism piece, because one way I've always imagined misery tourism is that it's like this old beat up notebook that an edgy high school kid would have, but with infinite pages that like span across like every edgy teenager from every alternate reality, like in the entire cosmos or something. And
that's an amazing image.
I just love this piece. I really love it. Thank you.
You know what? That's actually, it's fucking wild that you say that, because Rudy and I, when we were working on kind of redesigning the website years ago when we were relaunching it, it was an ordeal. It was Rudy, myself, and then a couple of other friends, Sarah, who has been on the podcast a few times, and we just kept like, one thing, Rudy and I, like, we think very similarly in a lot of ways, but we have very different like aesthetic tastes. And I was like, well, why don't we try something like really like pared down and like, let's use Helvetica and like just do black and white Helvetica. And Rudy was like, nah, that's fucking lame. And Rudy, I don't remember exactly what he pitched, but he kept showing me these different like websites that were very like elaborate, and I'm like, no, that's too busy, you know, like I don't think we could pull that off. And we went back and forth, and finally one of us just linked in the chat like a screenshot of the notebooks of Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold's notebooks. And if you haven't seen those, they're covered in these like incoherent scrawlings, and they've got these really ugly pictures in them that they drew by hand, like of like you know, like weird demons and shit that you might be into if you were a teenage nerd. And like
Mhm.
Doom stuff, and we were like, hey, like, why don't we try to emulate that look? So it's really wild that you picked that up, because that's exact, like, pitch perfect, exactly what the inspiration was, trying to capture that, like, really, like, that silly, like, sad, edgy teenager like vibe. Then scrolling's in a notebook, just like you said.
Hmm.
Wow. I really enjoyed that piece. I'm just afraid to talk
Jesus
too much.
Christ. Jesus.
Whoa, okay.
Oh, what happened?
So loud.
Oh, sorry about that. Um,
I'll
sorry,
just stop being a pussy. I'm sorry.
oh, are you? Oh, okay. Sorry, maybe Ann was having mic issues again. Yeah, okay. I think. Oh, sorry, Ann. Thank you, thank you. So did anyone else want to read anything, or will we leave it at that?
You should. Okay, I want to read that list that you wrote that is really really good.
List?
Um, it's from, or we can schedule that game. That is really cool.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure what you mean, but oh, do you mean like 6-page manual or something from the
Oh, man.
misery index? Oh man. Sure. Just to give some context here, Rudy and I published a collection of our role-playing games. Oh my God, like 8 years ago now. And Eris is going to read, I think, from one of the ones that I wrote. And basically, it's a satire of there's a kind of game called Jeep Farm, which is on the fringes of the like indie RPG sphere. And what they're basically these like European theater RPGs that have very limited like rules, and they're always about like reenacting some really terrible traumatic event or something. So anyway, I made a satire, a kind of a jokey parody of one of those, and I think that's what she's going to read.
I just need to find it.
Sure.
After all the 6 copies that I bought, which I have no regrets over. I'm happy about that.
Yeah,
Anyway,
we had to make the
I'm
misery
sorry.
index free because like we felt bad that you just kept giving us $5 for new copies when you could just copy the PDF.
But it made me feel nice, and um, can you find it?
Can I find it? Yeah, just
Or
a
we can
second.
just wait for another thing. I don't want to trouble you.
Maybe let me just see. I'm just, since it's in a PDF, I'm just not sure. Rudy, you don't happen to have a link to the PDF handy, do you?
Yes. Okay,
I
awesome.
don't actually.
I have found it. Hooray.
Oh, awesome.
Aw. You're so nice. How are you getting out of psychosis? Oh, that's sweet. Tell her I love her. Even though I scream at her all the time. Yay! Okay. The misery index. Oh my god, yes. Okay. This is so beautiful. You guys need to download this if you haven't already.
Yeah, it's free now, so really no loss.
Yeah. Okay, so I really want to read minor punishment chart or moderate punishment chart.
Yeah, knock yourself out. The just I guess to give some context, basically the way the game is played is you roll up a character on these totally randomized charts, and it's always going to be the character you end up with is always going to be some really like pathetic, kind of depressing person with some like overwrought problem. But the way the game goes is if at any point during the
Relatable.
game you break character, you have to roll a punishment, and that punishment adds some kind of wrinkle to your character. Like the first time, and there are 3 charts, so there's a minor punishment chart, and that's something that's generally pretty easy to role play along with your character. But then and then the second time you break character, you get a moderate punishment, and that is usually more absurd. And then the third time, you get a severe one, and that's something really like out there that's going to be incredibly hard to play. Anyway, sorry.
Why are you sorry? You're amazing. You wrote this. A hemophiliac who's into BDSM is oh god, that's a great character. A prostitute who refuses to cut his or her toenails. Oh god. Okay. It's so good. Maybe we should play it or
Someday we'll have to. Someday we'll have to. Instead of having a reading, we'll have a Zoom role playing session or something where we play a whole bunch of bad indie RPGs.
Yeah, we should.
you mean awesome. Okay, so minor punishment chart. 1. You have an inoperable tumor. 2. You regularly suffer from sleep paralysis. 3. You are plagued by existential doubts. 4. You have a kidney stone. 5. You suffer from frequent migraine headaches. You are infertile. An ex has approached you about reconciling, but you are in a new relationship. You are illiterate. You are a vegan. A relative is near death, but you don't know how to contact them. You are a Satanist. You have a severe food allergy. Okay, moderate. You are a grammar Nazi who is also an actual Nazi. I love the Cotard syndrome reference too. You are wearing a tamper-proof suicide vest with a 56-minute timer. You are wearing an elaborate full-body fursuit. You suffer from an advanced case of Parkinson's disease, and your symptoms are acute. You are sleepwalking and you do not wake easily. You are pretending to be homeless in order to impress the opposite sex. Severe punishment chart. You are dead. You are deaf. You are a ballpoint pen. You are an intelligent airship that runs on methamphetamine. You are Teddy Roosevelt. You are a big stick. You are a Chinese soldier driving a tank through Tiananmen Square. You are a Palestinian werewolf on the wrong side of a border checkpoint and the moon is full. Wow. Okay, so you translated this or?
No. That's it's kind of a like a metatextual joke. Like originally I just wrote the really like the charts and the really like awkward like poorly translated English text because part of these are like mostly it's like this is the Jeep forum thing is like really popular in like Eastern Europe. So a lot of their manuals are like just like you know, you can tell English is their second, third, or fourth language usually. And then I was like, I had this thing that had this really poorly, like this really intentionally badly written text, and then the charts, and I just kind of wrote a little faux intro that gave the impression that it was that I had used Google Translate to translate it. But that, you know, that's just like the whole thing is like a joke.
You're extremely talented. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, no worries.
Anyway, maybe we'll call it there. Did anyone else maybe want to read before all is said and done here?
Bibles, say hi.
Are we going to get a guest appearance from Bibles?
Oh shit! Hey, Bibles.
Maybe not. I think Bibles may have wandered away from his computer. Anyway, so I'll end the recording there, but I will, as I usually do, keep the Zoom meeting open for a little while. If you're watching the archive of this on the website and you made it this far, more power to you, I guess. But anyway, if you are watching the archive of this on the website, we do this shit every Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific. Anyway, yeah. And thanks for tuning in. And thank you, everyone, for coming. Thank you for reading. Thank you, Anne. Thank you, Adam. Thank you. I think Hestia had to leave, but thank you, Hestia. And thank you to everyone who read during the open mic. All right. Thanks, guys.